This is the education part of what we're going to talk about. When I was building startups, one of the things I heard almost in the early days, every time I went in front of money, so whether it was a seed fund or a venture group, it was always a, hey, you're doing all the right things, you're on all the right path, but you're not ready yet. And then the conversation would end. And I would leave going like, okay, I'm not ready. What does that mean? What do I need to do next? What's actionable from this? And I almost never got it, at least while I was in the room. And I came up here, this was maybe 8 years ago, I talked to Dave Barkos, and Dave gave me this. And he said, well, Charles, where are you in your company? And I said, well, we're in Portland. And he goes, no, that's not the question I'm asking. Where is your company in development? And he put this thing in front of me. And I had never seen it at that point. And it's the stages of startup. So idea is the first stage. We all probably have ideas. We probably have 10 napkins on our desk or Post-it notes with doodles of things that we think are going to change the world. I always say those things are free because an idea without execution or a plan to execute is not worth a whole lot, right? It'll die on a Post-it note. We meet a lot of startups that are in idea phase that think that they're a lot further down this pipeline than they are. Next will be concept. This is as we actually start to put together a plan on how it is that we're going to build this idea that we have. So this may be financials. I am consulting with a number of companies right now that have products but not financials. And I'm like, oh, that's fascinating, that you would build and invest in building a product, but you don't actually know the market size. You don't know if this thing's going to actually be worth building. And they're like, yeah, but look at how cool this is. And I'm like, that is really cool, but I don't know what we're going to do with it. Commit. This is when you're no longer just the crazy person dancing in a field. You actually get crazy people to dance with you, and it becomes a party. So you're going to start to execute. I normally say if you're in an idea or concept phase within this market specifically, you're probably not going to be able to fundraise a ton of money outside of friends and family round. We see a lot of people try to go in front of the VC and angel groups in concept phase with a plan of how they're going to build the next great thing. And this market just doesn't tend to love that. They want you to get to this commit stage where you're not solo by yourself, when you actually are building out this minimal viable product, maybe 2 M's, maybe a minimal viable product. And you have to almost always get through that stage with a product and with MOUs or people who are willing to pay you for it in order to be able to get in front of talking to people with money. The validate stage is where we see a ton of companies fall apart because they realize at that point that the assumptions that they built their product on were not right. And they get it out in the market and they actually start asking people for money. And those people say, hey, that's great, but I really wish it did this. And then you iterate on your product for 5 years or until you're out of money. And we see these companies kind of just fall apart. That being said, validation to me doesn't start until somebody pays you. All the time we meet with people who build cool products, they get out there and they're like, I have 10,000 MOUs. And I'm like, that's great. People are telling you that they may use your product at some point. But if you don't ask for a credit card at the end of that focus group and actually get people to pay you, I don't know that you get the validation. In this market, this is where I see most people getting investment. So up until this part, let's meet and talk, or talk with somebody in the room about how you get up to this part. Most money wants to scale. They want their money to make more money. They want for you to be able to take your product that you've already vetted with at least a good segment of the market, and they want for you to be able to take their money and market and spend and end up just going out there and grabbing market share. As you get through scale, most of us would think it gets easier. I think it gets harder. Trying to run an established business that continues to keep market share and continues to stay relevant within the space, I find to actually be really challenging. And also, this is where you often see a lot of the brain drain in companies. You see the people who innovated and built the first great product leave and go to do it somewhere else because that part's really hard and it often makes really long life cycles in order to find benefits. In startup, we call this space the valley of death. This is that moment when you have to start meeting these milestones in order to get money. And we see most startups fail there. It's like 1% of startups ever get to product, 1% of those ever get to revenue. It's not to say that it's not doable and that we shouldn't all be doing it, but don't try to do it alone. Bring in people around you, talk to people who are here who have done it before. It's why we do this event, is so that you don't have to try to learn what happens in the room. We try to bring people who have been in the room into this room, who can tell you what they did, where they stubbed their toes, the good things and the bad things.